Dying is bad. But it may surprise you to learn there are much worse fates than death, like being locked in a room and being forced to watch the live-action Avatar movie for 100 years straight. These are 10 horror game fates worse than death.
Amnesia Rebirth, becoming a human energy drink. Whilst
Ooh,
these particular humans
tasty.
dead and more like rotted corpses than sentient beings, the ghouls in Amnesia Rebirth are very much alive and definitely out for blood. After being lured by the Empress into her dimension to drink her supposedly healing water, unfortunate people begin their transformation into harvesters, ghouls unwittingly acting on the behalf of the Empress to obtain vitae, a substance which she needs in significant quantities to sustain herself. They're rotted, zombie-like figures who hunt and torture regular humans in order to obtain the vitae. Our protagonist
This just sounds like Red Bull.
sees pretty much all her mates either be killed by or become these monsters, and they're consistently her most immediate enemy throughout the story. This fate
Definitely monster.
you have to suffer through a confusing and seemingly unstoppable transformation, and then spend the rest of your existence as a subhuman predator, serving the very villain who is to blame for making you this way in the first place. Devoid
Pretty much sounds like any kind of energy drink, really. You drink it, you turn into an inhuman monster, reliant on this delicious, delicious slurpy juice in order to function as a human being. Just sounds like caffeine.
of humanity, you could kill friends or family and remorselessly torture them. Even before you've been fully transformed, the fear and the ongoing process of change can cause you to do things you never thought you would, beginning your loss of humanity long before you're far gone enough not to feel bad about it. 9.
Yeah, it just sounds like someone who's grumpy in the morning because they haven't had their coffee.
Splatterhouse. The mask lives on. Inspired by
Splatterhouse?
the much-loved slasher movie genre, 2010 Splatterhouse is a reboot of the 1988 original that continues to pay homage to much-loved 80s horror. After donning a cursed mask in order to save himself and his girlfriend from certain death, protagonist Rick finds himself battling a whole host of twisted enemies,
That's not that bad.
in order to unlock moves and special attacks, and occasionally being able to use your own ripped-off limbs as weapons. The player hacks and
Oh wait, that is pretty metal though. Oh no, I lost my arm. Guess it's just another weapon.
slashes their way through endless enemies, with Rick's eventual goal obviously being the salvation of him and his girlfriend and stopping the malicious Dr. West from seeing through his terribly thought out evil plot. It's really gotta suck that regardless of how things play out, there really isn't any winning. The end of the game sees his girlfriend Jennifer become possessed by a vengeful spirit. Despite
no.
everything he's done, Rick is unable to keep her safe. And then comes the
Oh,
real
no.
kicker. The evil mask he put on to complete his mission, he can't take it off. It's
Oh,
fused
no.
to him, stuck to his skin and destined to stay a part of him forever, a reminder of his failure. Also, I can't imagine any future job interviews going particularly well with a goofy mask plastered to his mug.
Well, at least he's pretty buff. I'd say that dying is probably worse than being massive and huge without any effort.
We happy few, being terminally joyful. In
I don't see what's wrong with being happy.
dystopian alternate history England, the town of Wellington Wells has developed its
Oh, that's right. You must be on drugs. It's impossible to be happy on England unless you're incredibly high.
own way of coping with life following the loss of the Battle of Britain, and the things they had to do in order to secure safety from the Germans in their humble island hamlet. Residents are all hooked on a drug called Joy, which manipulates how they view their environment so they aren't constantly reminded of the war-torn state and the fragility of everything. With the use of Joy being held as a high priority and being strictly enforced, Wellington Wells is pretty much a surveillance state, with a big police violence problem. Essentially,
That sounds pretty similar to real life.
you can take your happy drugs, or you can get cast out and die, be complicit in your own incapacitation, or rebel and have your life ripped away. And what kind of choice is that? It's a constant fight for survival, playing as any one of the three protagonists, each with their own abilities, limitations, and complex pasts.
Be really, really high or executed by the state. Hashtag my body, my choice, right,
Being
guys?
trapped in a police state where even the water wants to subdue you into complacency must wear you down.
They drug the water? Hydro homies will be very upset at that one.
Outlast, stuck in Mount Massive Asylum. With
Oh, I
every
played
little
Outlast once and I did not like it. I think this one's gonna be the fate worse than death, definitely.
thing in the game being so genuinely horrific, it's a bit hard to pick just one fate that's worse than death, so we've gone a little rogue with this one. War Rider, the malevolent collection of nanites that has been absolutely eviscerating patients and staff alike inside the asylum, is revealed to be controlled by a patient named Billy Hope.
Oh, Billy's not got much hope, has he?
Information that its existence was brought about by dream therapy being conducted on highly traumatized patients.
Damn it, Dream! I know cheating in Minecraft would have bigger repercussions!
We can assume that for Walrider to be so powerful and active, then its controller, Billy, must be in a constant dream state, and he's not having very nice dreams. In life, Billy would have been subject to the cruel treatment and experiments we learned were commonplace at the asylum. Now, in a comatose state, he is still riddled with nightmares induced by the trauma that put him there in the first place. Never mind the millions of layers of horror the asylum assumedly added to it. If that doesn't do it for you, you can pretty much look at any of the other patients you encounter throughout the game and be confident that
He seems like a nice fella.
life, under constant threat from Walrider, other patients, and even just the wrecked conditions they exist in, nobody is a winner in this game. 6. Bendy.
Yeah, no, that seems pretty bad. I was trying to think of a counter argument. There is no one. If you go there, then you dicked.
And the ink machine, Bendy Hell forever. When retired animator Henry Stein receives a letter from a previous colleague of his, Joey, inviting him to their old animation studio, he sees
Dear Joey, please come to my horror game. Thank you!
absolutely no reason to be suspicious and goes right ahead. Even after entering the long-abandoned studio and finding a defunct ink machine and a tape recording detailing how Joey got really into the occult, he still decides it's a fair idea to just spark up that bad boy. As soon as
Listen, if I find a note on the ground that says, I really love Satanism, it's very epic and pog, I'm gonna be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go now. I'm just going to go home to my family, to my cat, and have a nice lasagna.
successfully gets this machine booted up, however, he is attacked by what appears to be a demonic version of the old studio mascot.
Dude, is he suited up in latex? This is some kind of BDSM cult. He is pretty yoked, though.
It's all downhill. What follows is Henry's deeper descent into the inky madness, encountering a number of evil adversaries along the way, as well as inky versions of fellow previous studio employees. The
Oh,
real
dear.
kicker comes at the end, when Henry seems to have traversed the worst of it and reached the end of his nightmare. Get dropped back right at the start of it all. It seems
No.
there isn't an escape. Despite his trials and
Oh.
tribulations, he's placed back at the start to repeat it all seemingly forever, living
No, what? Come on, man. If someone gets through the entire thing, you just need to let them go. That's ridiculous. I need to speak to the manager of this ink machine place.
loop in inky hell. 5.
pretty
SOLARIX.
bad.
Inevitable death in the great expanse.
Ah, you can't put death as a fate worse than death. Come on now.
Nothing new in space-based horror games to have someone's fate be a hopeless traversal of space, with no potential for survival and no means by which to get back. This, however, doesn't make it any less horrific. After going through all the trauma of being the sole survivor of a human colony ravaged by a zombifying virus, protagonist Walter also becomes a target of a group of mercenaries on something of a cleanup mission. Even after
Imagine surviving an actual zombie plague and you see the first humans you've seen in 10 years and they're like, oh yeah, man, sorry, we have to shoot you. We're on a little bit of a cleanup duty here. No one's allowed to get out. Come on, dude, I just survived the zombies.
everything in his power to try to amend the situation, it's still not enough. Walter finds that not enough of the serum supposed to cure the infection was ever created to be viable, and
Of
with
course.
everyone apart from himself dead, he's hurled into space as the evil alien machine that caused all these problems detonates the planet. No
Oh,
one's
no.
around to pick him up, no one's alive that knows how to help him, and he's without a ship or any supplies,
Oh,
simply
no.
floating in space. It's a
No.
pretty grim fate, dying knowing that you essentially accomplished nothing, especially when
Oh.
this death comes in the form of a prolonged, lonely float through space. 4.
Oh no, that is worse than death, actually. Oh, dude, everything that you try to do is completely pointless, and you also have to fly through space. That's one of my greatest fears, is being buried alive, and I think flying through space in a spacesuit with no hope of savior is the worst. I think that's just as bad as being buried alive, really. In fact, being buried alive, you'd probably die sooner. If you're in a spacesuit, you just have to do it for weeks, except you can't even have a concept of time. You just slowly die. Oh my god, okay. And if you thought that was bad, there's still 4 more to go, so keep yourself strapped in.
Resident Evil 7, Controlled by the Mold. Family's everything, that's what they say, right? Well, Resident Evil 7's Evelyn surely believes this, and she takes it far beyond where any reasonable person should. Looking innocent enough in her passable human forms, Evelyn actually employs use of a psychotropic mold to control those around her. She's obsessed with the idea of having a family, and first infected Mia, our protagonist's wife, in order to make her behave as her mother. Mia and the Bakers were all under Evelyn's control, living in the squalid conditions we see them in. From piecing together the bits of evidence we see, the Baker family was normal once upon a time. They could have been the all-American—
Hey, what is normal, really? If you're controlled by a zombifying mold made by some little girl that desperately wants a family, who are we to say as a society that that isn't normal? Why are we placing our societal standards on this demon girl?
Green team with their period home and acres of land, but instead they were morphed into the grotesque, terrifying—
Oh God! Oh, Jesus Christ! So the mold? Oh my days! Jesus, no, I don't like that!
know them as, though they aren't exactly aware of quite how gross their situation is, with that first sequence at the table showing us what Marguerite genuinely thinks is a lovely spread of food. Belief that ignorance is bliss surely doesn't cancel
yes, rotting intestines, delicious, delectable. You'd see that at a Michelin star.
Would it not be better to just be peacefully dead than to live on and become a monster? 3.
Oh, well, depends what kind of monster. You can turn into like a really cool monster that has like wings so you could fly. That'd be good.
Dante's Inferno. Demonic Francesco. Admittedly, it is pretty hard to feel bad for someone who looks as horrific and demonic as Francesco. This guy didn't have it great in life, and when you assume he'll receive the ultimate peace in death, he was instead placed in the 7th circle of hell.
Oh, come on, man. You fight for God your whole life, and then he just like boops you down to the 7th circle of hell. Like, come on, give me a little slack.
Of violence. As a living bloke, he really thought he was fighting for what was right, honoring God's name. He confronted Dante over his sins and missteps, rallied to spare the lives of the slaves Dante slaughtered, and even took the fall for Dante's crime, which led to his death. Now,
what did he do wrong? Why is he in hell then? This is rigged. I want a refund.
Deformed into a twisted demon, his back impaled with swords, you can understand why he's a bit upset at Dante and doesn't understand why God has forsaken him. It's
I don't understand either. What's going on with that?
Definitely a raw deal to be doomed to eternity in the most violent circle of hell, perpetually cursing your best friend for causing your death and questioning your faith and morality for it seems to have failed you. The guy really did do his best, it's just that his best friend then slept with his sister and caused him to get hung, and having to dwell on that for eternity whilst having a bunch of knives stuck in your spine isn't gonna be fun. 2.
Oh, he got a raw deal there. He deserves better. Hashtag whatever his face was deserves better.
Unforgiving, a northern hymn, being one with nature.
That sounds pretty good. This can't be that bad.
Car accident leaves Lynn and her brother Lucas stranded in the woods. The two quickly realise that they're at risk from more than just exposure and wild animals. One of the most monstrous forms occupying the woods takes being one with nature to a whole new level, with trees bearing miserable human features and voices. Assumedly, each of these tree people were long ago bitten by the Huldra, the naked woman who really isn't a woman but rather a horrible monster.
She got boob out. You're not allowed to have boob out. You should put a bra on.
Lynn's arm. Slowly and painfully, this bite causes your body to become consumed by roots, eventually cementing you to the spot whilst you complete your transformation to your—
You'd be dead though, right? You got roots in your veins. How are you gonna live?
Woodland form. These tree spirits are evidently conscious and lucid enough to count as alive, as when you have to set fire to one in order to fit through a narrow passage, it begs you not to. It makes it—
If you're a tree, surely you just want to be sweet release of death. How can it be a fate worse than death if they'd rather be the tree than be dead? Explain that one to me, video.
The worst that this particular tree is shaped like a mother holding a baby, complete with the infant's wails as you, like the evil person you are, douse it in gasoline and spark it up. It's not—
Oh, come on, why'd you have to make it the baby one? Why did the baby have to be in the awkward position? I just want to get past it. You can squeeze past that. Surely you can squeeze past that little hole there. There's no way you tell me you need to burn down that tree.
Even as if the burning ends the tree mother's suffering, as in completing the game you find that the evil Nikan is keeping Lynn in a loop, with the implication being that everything resets whenever she reaches the end. I mean, as if it's not bad enough to be trapped as a tree, being periodically burnt to death with your infant in your arms is really the icing on the bad day cake. 1.
Yeah, no, I get it now. If everything resets, especially if you keep the memories of the first time, every single time you go through the loop, you end up getting burned again. Oh, jeez.
Have no mouth and I must scream.
I know that one.
Torture. This game always comes up
The game's called Infinite Torture? Jesus Christ.
discussing the most hopeless and brutal endings in horror games, and that is for good reason. Everyone loves the good old evil supercomputer, and Allied Master Computer, or AM, is up on the top tier of terrifying technology. Developed initially as a tool to fight in a complex war, AM managed to absorb the two rival supercomputers before going on to wipe out humanity, sparing only 5 humans. However,
Only 5? Why? That's an odd number. That's really aggravating that you only spared 5.
can't really call it sparing them, I guess, if the express reason for keeping their lives intact is to torture them for eternity. AM
What? I mean, they die, right?
really despises humans, and after over a century of non-stop torture, they decide to step it up a notch and subject each of their human playthings to an experience of their own personal hell. I mean, it's thoughtful at least. Featuring their worst nightmares, look-backs at their personal failures, and glimpses of the long-dead people they once had in their lives, being subjected to this torture would definitely leave you reeling. It doesn't
come
end
on.
there, though. Depending on which ending you get, things can be worse. In one instance, for example, a character who attempts to shut down AM's system is caught and turned into a blob. In another, hundreds
Well, being a blob could be
of
worse.
humans are awoken from cryogenic freezing only to begin their own endless cycles of torture. Being one
Oh,
of the
great.
5 humans to survive this ordeal really isn't worth it, leaving all of them, I'm sure, truly envious of the billions that were wiped out before them. And on that note, we've reached the
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be honest, that seems a bit bad. Let me know what you think the worst ending would be in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to more patterrz. Link is in the description for the original video. Thank you so much.